Hey everyone, how you doing? Can you hear my audio okay? Anybody wave?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna give it another minute or two before we get started, okay? I haven't hit the record button yet, but just want to give a few more
Hey,
people.
Chief.
How's it going?
Jake here. Good.
Who's that?
That's Jake Woodford.
Oh, hey Mayor, how are you?
I'm good.
Good, excellent. Well, I know we have one of the board members who's not going to be here tonight because he is in the hospital right now. Austin's in the hospital with his wife in the middle of childbirth. So I guess that's a pretty good excuse to miss a meeting. So we'll get started in a minute or so. Beth is Beth is on. She'll keep the minutes again. There you are, Innocent. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, Chief. Good to see you.
Good. For some reason, you came in as an attendee, not a panelist, so I just changed you to a panelist.
Oh,
And I see
sorry.
Gabrielle is the same thing, so I'm going to move her over.
I think that Irma is listed as under my name because I sent her the link and it wasn't sent right from the generated right from the, yeah.
She's top row, third over. It's the same for you.
Yep.
And I see Elijah is also as an attendee, so I'm going to move him over to a panelist. Want to make sure I'm not missing anybody else yet. Beth, can you get into the attendee log also, or the attendee banner?
Yes.
Am I
Mhm.
missing
I
anybody
think I
there?
can. Just hold that thought.
Yeah. Elijah might be under Deb Sontag. All right, I just want to make sure we've got everybody on here. All right, Beth, you think we got everybody?
Doesn't look like everybody's signed on yet, but
Okay. Oh, there's Elijah. All right. There's Kristen. Hi, Kristen.
Hi.
Dan.
yeah.
All right, we're getting there.
Yeah, I think we're shy maybe 2 people right now,
Okay.
besides Austin.
Besides Austin. All
Right.
Sorry, I was late. I had technical difficulties.
Hey, hashtag 2020, right?
Yes, sir.
And sorry, I was early. I think I popped in like 20
Good.
minutes early, and you and another lady who was on the line was like, oh.
That was my hairstylist. I was getting my hair done for the meeting. Yeah, she does a great job. All right, I got 24, Beth.
Yep, we're still a couple shy, but
Okay. Well, I guess we'll just get started, and if they pop in, they do. If Beth, if you could just keep an eye on the attendees banner and see if that grows, just to make sure that we can get them over to the right.
sure.
So welcome back, everyone. We changed the format a little bit, as you can see. So we're doing it as a webinar now. So what that means is only the board members are going to be visible, and only the board members will be able to speak. So the attendees, that is open to anybody in the public, but they won't be able to comment or speak. One of the other changes we did was we also took away the chat box. Couple reasons. The chat box can cause some issues for open meetings, public meetings. So technically that could cause us more problems than it's worth. We have to go through, and my understanding is we have to read every message that's left in the chat box to make it public record. So to eliminate that issue, we just shut the chat box down. So what I would ask is, as we go forward in the meeting, if you have any questions when we're talking about something, if you just want to raise your hand or wave, and I'll try to see you. If I don't see you, just please speak up. I don't think it's being rude in this type of format. It's just kind of what we have to do. Nobody's going to be offended. Just say, excuse me, I have a question, and I'd appreciate that as we go through some of the stuff. So I talked about the webinar mode. The chat box is off. Like I said, if you have to ask any questions, make a comment, just raise your hand or speak up. I had listed first on the agenda after the welcome is some old business, and there was just a few things that you guys brought up at the last meeting. You asked me to do some follow-up on. I know Beth sent you some information, some benchmarking information comparing our department with other departments. So I hope you got that. If you didn't, just let me know or let Beth know, and we'll send it to you again. There was a couple other questions. Did anybody have any questions on the information that Beth sent last time? The benchmarking material, some of the other information? Okay. All right. The other thing that was asked was the demographics of the police department, which is a question we get pretty commonly. So what's the makeup of the Appleton Police Department? It's been fairly consistent for the last, well, at least since I've been here, 6 years. Currently, we have 112 officers. Of the 112 officers, we have 4 that are Southeast Asian, 2 that are African American, 4 that are Hispanic, and 1 Native American. So our population, or the percentage, if you will, is about 3.5% Asian, 1.8% Black. Our community population for African American is 3.1, just for comparison. Hispanic, we are 3.5% Hispanic officers, but our population in the community is 5.7 out of the most recent census data. And a Native American, we have 0.8%, and 0.6% of our population is Native American. So we are still below what our, mirroring what our community looks like. But we're making strides. I can tell you that we're in a process now of hiring 5 officers. We are doing backgrounds on 5 officers, hopefully to swear them in by January. They've made it through all the interview steps and the testing portion. It's now just to the background and then hiring and setting the start date. Of those 5, we have another African American officer who's currently an officer in another jurisdiction who wants to move back to Appleton, the Fox Cities, where he grew up. And we have a Hispanic officer. Actually, a first-generation American. His parents came from Mexico, sharecroppers, first in his family ever to get a degree. He's currently a prison guard, and we hope to hire him in January. So that will increase our numbers a little bit, but we're still a little below our community, mirroring what our community looks like. But again, something we'll continue to work on. Does anybody have any questions on that? we'll talk a little more about recruiting and what we do to try to recruit and hire diverse candidates as we move on and talk about other topics in the next several months. Another question we had was on applicants. The applicant pool that we get is pretty diverse. It generally mirrors our community. The percentages change each time. Several processes are run a year. So we'll gather like 100, 150 applicants, and then we'll run a process, and then we'll open another process and run another one. Generally, the percentage mirrors our community. We have done studies in the last several years. Our last large one was 2016, where we tried to identify where are certain groups falling out in our hiring process. So is there one area, one test, either a written test or a physical test or some portion of the test where we're disproportionately washing out a certain group of people, either because of race, sex? We have not found any patterns that we've looked at. It seems to be random. We do get a lot of minority candidates from other parts of the state who don't show up to take our test. A lot of it is the recruitment that we do in the Milwaukee area. So we'll do a lot of recruiting down in the Milwaukee area to try to get applicants. We have done research and found that the majority of minority students involved in criminal justice programs usually go to UW Milwaukee. So we've gone down and targeted UW Milwaukee to try to recruit applicants. We'll get them to apply, but getting them to come up and actually take the test and complete the steps is usually where they drop off. And that's not unusual. I was kind of shocked the first time I did some hiring processes, and literally at every step of the process, 20 to 30% of the candidates won't even show up. So we'll invite 100 applicants to take a written test, and only 70 of them will take the test. Out of that 70, we'll invite 60 of them to show up for a physical test. 35, 40 of them will show up, and it just seems to drop every time. And that's not.
And Chief, just to be clear, what you're talking about in terms of candidates from historically underrepresented backgrounds who don't engage in the testing process or the application process beyond that initial inquiry in Appleton, they are, most of them, pursuing opportunities with other departments at that point.
Right, and that's across, whether it's people from those other areas or it's our local people that are in other processes. So they drop out not because of at every step. It's not just because of the people from Milwaukee or from the larger cities. A lot of them find jobs in other areas, or they're involved in other processes and they don't continue. Some of them come up and they take a look at the community, or they do some research and it's not what they thought it was, so they just don't show up for the testing. So there's a lot of reasons for that, but that's fairly consistent across all agencies, all law enforcement agencies. It's not like you think it would be, where people would, if somebody's going to take the time to put in an application and you invite them to a test, you would expect the majority of people would show up for that, but that's just kind of unusual. Yes, Kanan.
So it's a little hard for me to understand. So you're saying that they feel that applicants of color feel intimidated by a test?
No.
I mean,
no, I'm saying all applicants.
Okay, so it's all applicants. Okay.
Yeah, all applicants. Yeah, it doesn't. It's not applicants of color or females or males. That's just. Okay. And I did the hiring in Green Bay for years at Green Bay PD, and I remember the first few processes I ran, I was just scratching my head. It's like, why are people not showing up for the test? And it's part of the law enforcement process, I think, because when we put in a notice out there to take applications, there are probably another dozen or 15 law enforcement agencies out there at the same time taking applications. So if I'm looking for a job, I may have 10 or 15 applications out there. So I may apply this month for Appleton PD, but I may not hear from Appleton PD for 2 months that we're starting to do testing. And by that time, I might have got a job. I might have be involved in some other process where I know I'm going to get hired. So I just don't show up for the testing. It's not about the race or the sex. It's just across the board. We have an issue with people showing up for the tests.
So with that being said, Chief, do you think we should be looking at alternative routes in recruitment?
We tested a 1 day or a 2 day testing process where we actually went to a university. And we've talked about doing that again down in Milwaukee, but we actually went to a UW, or not UW, Northern Michigan University, where we basically took it on the road. So one of our recruiters, one of our supervisors, we went up to Northern Michigan, we stayed overnight, and we basically did our entire process in 2 days. So instead of them coming to us, we went to them to try to make it easier. We went through that entire process and didn't hire one person. So, you know, we've tried things like that. We talked about going down and doing that maybe in the UW Milwaukee area, the Madison area, to try to recruit more diverse candidates, which I think would be a great thing to try. I think it would probably be much more successful than expecting people to come up here and drive 2 or 3 hours, literally 5 or 6 times, because the tests are on all different days. That's a big commitment to try to fit in with a work schedule. So I think taking it on the road again would be beneficial once we get through COVID. We can actually do that and the students are back in class. But we are really interested in any other ideas, because this is a challenge not just for our agency, but it's a challenge for every law enforcement agency, is how do we recruit more diverse candidates? You know, I won't say we go steal employees from other agencies, but we're willing to do that. We do lateral pays. So that's why the 5 candidates that we hope to hire in January, the top 3 are all police officers already in other agencies that we're hiring from other agencies as a lateral transfer. So we've done that. But any other ideas or suggestions that anyone has on what else we can be doing?
Hey, Chief, I think that's a good point. When you say if it's 5 different days that they have to come down there, you know, if you're employed already with another PD, how are you going to get all those days off? And especially if you really don't want the PD to know that you're interviewing with another PD.
Right.
So either if you could condense those days down, or do it more of even a web-based, you know, something like this.
Right.
You know, that's another option.
Yeah, I think anything that we can do to make it easier and quicker is beneficial, because we also know that it's competitive. You know, when you have good candidates out there with diverse backgrounds, they know that there are a lot of agencies that are looking for them. And many times we know we are racing other agencies because we communicate back and forth. You know, and one of the questions we ask our candidates in the first couple interviews is, where are you at in other processes? So if you've employed or applied for like Madison PD, you know, how far along are you in the process? Are you to the process to the point where they're going to offer you a job next week? Because that means a lot to us. Or did you just start with them where we can get ahead of them? So, yes, Ben.
Hey, Chief. It sounds like one of the big problems is the fact that we're looking to other parts of the state versus this area here. You know, if the tests are on multiple days and whatever, if people are in the area or have ties to this area, they'll be probably much more willing to be able to take the test and then also come back here to work. I was wondering, have we targeted, like, you know, we have a lot of youth in the community and had, you know, people of the same background or ethnicity or whatever, kind of nudge this person and be like, hey, you'd be a really good police officer. And along those lines, I mean, a targeted outreach in that way, working with the people that work with this. And I was reading a couple articles on this, and one of them suggested things like working with the NAACP, like barbershops, hair salons, that type of thing. People that really, you know, work with these people on an everyday basis, whichever, or any other place where people kind of hang out. And the other thing that they recommended was, like, I don't know what the APD has for money for scholarships, or money that comes in that could be directed, but maybe like a minority scholarship thing to go to school, to be criminal justice and things like that.
Yeah, those are great comments. Yeah, we do a lot of local recruiting. A lot of it is through our school resource officer program. Our SROs are out in the schools at very young ages, actively trying to recruit diverse candidates. We also have our cadet program that I'll talk about in a little bit, that we use to try to recruit students. I love the idea of getting out into the areas where we're going to be in more contact with those individuals. Never thought about the idea of a scholarship. I've heard that happen in other places, but I love the idea of a scholarship. We do have some educational incentive from the city, but that's something that is limited just to law enforcement, sworn law enforcement officers. We do have CSOs, civilians, which get started at a lower rate, but they're usually 19, 20-year-olds that are interested in law enforcement and already attending school or college. But that is an area that we've actually opened up recruitment for. So we used to only hire CSOs at starting employment weight position if they were involved in a criminal justice program or getting their degree. But now we've opened it up to anybody that we can identify that would be a good police officer. So we did that intentionally when we had a candidate come through our officer process several years ago who had no training in law enforcement, was a diverse candidate with a great background, decided he wanted to get into law enforcement to make a difference, but he didn't fit into our CSO model at the time because he wasn't in school or attending college. So we changed it so that we could hire them. So we've made some of those changes, but I like the idea of the scholarship. I really do. That could be a really strong way to recruit, especially this day and age.
How diverse is our current CSO program?
I don't have the sheet with me now. We're right in the middle of a hiring process. I know we're down several CSOs. I don't think it's as diverse. I think we may have one out of our 6 or 7 CSOs that it would be you'd consider a Black, Indigenous, or a person of color. But I know we have 2 Southeast Asians that we're doing backgrounds on now, 2 Southeast Asian candidates for our CSO program.
Hi, Chief. This is Lisette. Question for you. How or is the diversity, equity, and inclusion City Hall or City of Appleton person, Karen Nelson, is she involved in any of this processes, or can she be involved, or is there any information that she might be able to share? I
don't want to put her on the spot. I think she's on here. But I know Karen is looking at the city as a whole, all the departments and the type of programs that we have in place for recruiting more diverse candidates. She's involved in a lot of projects. I don't know if she wants to speak to those right now. It's up to you, Karen. Oh, I don't hear you. Yeah, your audio is. There you go.
Okay, is that better? Okay. Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Lisette, for asking the question. Yes, I am involved in many ways, throughout the entire city. I know I have participated in panel interviews with various of the police officers as a part of the panel review process. And so if you have anything else more specifically in mind, definitely shoot that our way, and I'd be willing to consider that and discuss that with the chief and the mayor. Thank you.
I did have a question, but I just wanted to be nice. Beth, I saw that Beth had her hand raised for a while. Did you still have something to say? Jacek?
And that's actually Irma had her hand up. Yeah,
Hi,
we're both on my side on.
We got 2 Beth Jazziaks. Hi, Irma.
Yeah, hello. Nice meeting you, everyone. Thank you, Kristen. First of all, this is my first meeting, and truly thank you for being part of this, Chief. The question I had, and I think you answered, but I'm not sure, from a compensation and benefit perspective how do we compare to other regions or counties, all those competitive places that diversity is being recruited from?
Yes, great question. We actually paid, we're one of the highest paid, and Mayor, you have to turn your audio off now so you can't hear this. But we're actually one of the highest paid police departments in the state. We've got a great benefit package. The people that come to work here love the work schedule. We have a Pittman schedule. We work 12-hour shifts, so they get every other weekend off, Friday, Saturday, Sundays, so it's great for the family. We've hired sergeants and supervisors from other agencies who have actually not lost any wages transferring over to us. So yeah, that's important. People look at that. Employees look at that. They have families, and it's hard if you were working in another agency for 10 years. You built up that seniority and your vacation to give that all up and move to a different department. So we have to make sure that they have that incentive there. So yeah, we've got a really good benefit package. So I think I saw Martha, right? Do you have your hand up, Martha?
Yeah. Did Krista need to go first, though?
I did just have something to ask yet. So on talking about retention. So maybe I missed if you spoke on this at all, but in the past, I'm not sure if APD has been as diverse as it is now. No. So just speaking to retention, is there anything that you guys have planned or, in the future as you add more minority officers to your force in terms of retention and support that these officers feel like they're comfortable speaking out if something doesn't seem right or anything along those lines?
No, that's great. That's great insight. We have not had an issue with retention with any of our officers. We've had Southeast Asian officers here for 20-some years, 20+ years. I think we've been an African American officer who's been here for 12 years. But we haven't had a problem with retaining, but it is an issue that we're going to need to discuss and talk about. We generally only lose employees for two reasons. One is they go to like an FBI or a DCI, Department of Criminal Investigations for the state. I've lost 4, Beth, since I've been here in 6 years, which is really a good retention rate. It's 99-point-some%. But we've lost 3 to Department of Criminal Investigations, the State Department of Justice, to their investigative units because they are the lead agency in the state and they wanted to be investigators, those 3 people. And then we lost 1 officer who went back to La Crosse. He was a great officer, one of our Southeast Asian officers, but his clan was from La Crosse. His parents were getting older and they needed him back in La Crosse, so he moved his family back there. Totally understand that, respect that. So we have not had other turnover though. We haven't lost officers, but I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, Kristen, this is Jake. What you're getting at is the idea of affinity groups, and which I know you're familiar with. And I think as an organization, the city of Appleton needs to think more about affinity groups and how we connect and create opportunities for our employees to connect with people who share similar experiences and backgrounds and perspectives. And as we move forward, this is something Karen and I have been talking about, is how we support all of our employees, and human resources has been a part of this conversation too. So it's a relatively new conversation for us as an employer, but it's something that we think is really important as we move forward. So not just in PD, but across the city of Appleton as an employer.
Yes, Paul.
Yeah, there we go. So, yeah, Good evening, everybody. So we're talking about men here, right? I've not heard anything about female officers of minority female officers. Why are we just talking about men?
No, we have 11 female officers now. None of them are minority members, minority racial group. They are anywhere from a brand new hire to our captain of our investigative division is a female. One of our lieutenants, patrol lieutenants, is a female.
So what are you doing, Chief, to rectify that? That's a bit lopsided, isn't it?
Well, yes, absolutely. My wife is a police officer, so I wish I had more female police officers. Again, our applicant pool is what it is. We've looked at parts of the test to see if there are certain areas where we're losing our female candidates. Usually it's in the physical fitness portion. The challenge with that is the physical fitness standards are set by the state. So they cannot get into a recruit academy unless they do certain things. And that's what our standards are set at. So that is a discussion that's happening actually at the state level also.
Do we need to talk to our elected representatives to get that changed?
Well, I'm actually on the state's curriculum advisory committee. We're the committee of law enforcement, civilians, trainers that make recommendations on the training required for the law enforcement academy. And that's a discussion that we've been having. But again, it's a statewide discussion. It's a statewide requirement for all of the law enforcement academies. No matter where you are in the state, you have to meet these certain levels. So that's the levels that we set for our physical fitness testing. Again, recruiting female officers, a lot of it is, I think it was mentioned earlier, a lot of it is just personal reaching out, identifying them in the high schools, even younger, and encouraging them to think about a law enforcement career. Thought I saw a hand up. Bill.
So how do we compare? You're going to know better than we would. To Paul's point here, how do we compare to other agencies as far as that goes? Because what you're saying, it sounds like other agencies are probably running into the same thing with female officers. Are we comparative to other agencies? You were in Green Bay also, or would you say that say in Green Bay that it wasn't as lopsided?
No, it was just it was the same way back when I was there. I know they've hired a lot more female officers. A lot of them are in the same processes that we hire officers out of, so it's competitive that way. I think every agency struggles with that, just like we all struggle to find get good female candidates, good quality candidates that are minority members. Diversity is the biggest challenge for all of us in recruitment. And a lot of it, and I talked about going to the larger portions of the state, Milwaukee, Madison, the more populated areas, because that's just where the larger pool of candidates is. So that's why we do that. Again, female officers is something that we're actively searching and reaching out to female candidates. Recruit Academy, I've gone to the recruit academies out at Fox Valley Tech and talked to candidates out there, trying to encourage them to apply for APD. So those are some of the things we're doing. Just another hand, Martha.
I just wanted to piggyback off of Ben's question and statement. With Fox Valley Tech right in our backyard, do you guys team up to recruit, especially in the minority populations?
Yes, we have a lot of officers and supervisors here that train out at the Fox Valley Tech. They're adjunct instructors. A couple of them do a lot of the training in the recruit academy. So they'll identify good candidates for us, or candidates that are sponsoring themselves, either through the program, the 2-year program, or in the law enforcement academy. And they'll identify them and approach them and try to encourage them to apply for our department, and talk about Appleton Police Department. They'll encourage them to come do ride-alongs. So they are actively out trying to recruit in the academy and at Fox Valley Tech.
Do they, as an institution, though, also are they trying to increase the number of minorities in their school? Which would also then, I think, help APD as well.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what they do for recruitment. Laura?
So you were talking about like you're starting to go into high schools more. Have you ever thought about like having a school program for high schoolers that would maybe start them on the path of either like an education, the 2-year, or the police academy? Because like when I was in high school, I was done with all my credits, but like I couldn't like graduate, so I just took classes at the tech. Like, is that something that you guys could do with like what you already have set in place at the tech and just come up with like a curriculum for students who would be interested, wanted to know more, to be able to take that, still be able to be in school and not have to worry about like jobs and stuff, I guess, necessarily, but be able to kind of explore the career a little bit before?
Right. No, that's a good idea. You know, we have our Explorer post, but that's a little more formalized. We've done, I'll talk a little bit about our Citizens Academy. When we do recruitment, we'll go out to the academy and we'll set up tables along with other agencies and do just a day-long recruitment. But we haven't ever done a real, like an immersion, like a 4-hour, 8-hour immersion hosted here where we maybe run them through some scenarios, or they do a ride along, or, you know, they get a tour of the police department and spend some time with officers. We have never tried that, but that's a good idea.
Chief Thomas, can I mention something regarding that?
Yes.
I teach at Appleton East, and I'm also an adjunct professor through the tech. Students in my class can get 3 credits for FETC in my criminal justice class.
Oh.
All 3 of the high schools in Appleton have that class as a elective. I have 3 sections, so I will have about 90 kids in a year this year. Last year I had 5. So it's a new class, but it's written through the text, the FETC's curriculum that we follow. We use their textbook, and so that the kids have that experience. When it's not COVID, we go out and tour the facility, and we look, you know, we meet professors at the tech as well. I know Menasha has, I'm pretty sure Menasha has it as well. So there is programs in school. I mean, I can't recruit police officers out of my intro to criminal justice course. It's more like, this is sort of the idea, but kids who are interested can get their feet wet a little bit. Plus I can then connect them to people in the community if they do have the interest. And our SRO always comes in and speaks to the class.
Thanks, Amy. I appreciate that. Yes, Irma. Irma?
Yes, thank you. Again, my name is Beth, if you don't like me. If you like me, it's Irma. Just putting it out there. All right, guys. Just twofold, Chief Thomas. One, I'm just wondering if extending on this topic hinders on your agenda, but if not, what I would like to kind of engage in, as we're talking about recruitment, I've been thinking about how youth is influenced nowadays as I think about social media, as I think about that relationship that's on digital. So the question I guess I have is, what efforts or strategies have we thought through or maybe developing so that we're able to connect with this generation that is digital savvy?
Right. Yeah. It has definitely changed in the last 10 years, definitely changed in the last 5 years. But you're right. I think we're going to have a hard time getting through the agenda here. So if everybody's okay with that, I think I'll move this to a topic for next month's meeting. Next month we have use of force. So we're going to roll out our use of force numbers and report and everything to you. But I also want to invite in either Todd Peters or Polly Olson, who manage our recruitment and hiring, and bring them into the meeting next month and have a little deeper discussion on some of this stuff. I love some of these ideas. They're great ideas.
Hey, Chief, can I interrupt you just 1 second, add one more thing while it's on the top of my mind?
I got a lot of paper here, Kristen. I can write forever.
So just thinking so when you're recruiting, speaking on inclusion, so, you know, there's diversity everywhere. You can go and you can recruit all you want somewhere where there's diversity, or recruit here where there's also some diversity. So, but talking from inclusion, you know, I'm sure I've done job fairs and stuff like that where I kind of understand where when you go there, kind of have like a setup where, you know, every time it's kind of the same. You have your own setup every time and kind of got the same information. So what if you go at it more so from an inclusion standpoint, not just thinking about that diversity standpoint, where you go there thinking, I have these questions, you know, these topics of how bringing in diversity is good, but what does APD give from an inclusion standpoint? So where if I want to be a police officer, I go to APD because they're talking about ways to include me at the table, not just be a police officer with everyone else, but also say like, oh, your diversity matters. So, and in this way, and this is what you can bring to the police force because you may not be like everyone else on the force.
Yeah, excellent point. Yeah, when we have candidates that come through that we're competing with other agencies for, we have a lot of discussions like that. Other backgrounds that they have growing up, how they can use that to create programs. We had the candidate we had come through last month. We talked about, he's got a basketball background and how cool it would be for him to connect at the Boys and Girls Club and maybe start a program there. That's a great idea.
And I think it'd be great, Kristen, to bring that idea and a little bit more to the next conversation about recruiting. Just in terms of what would that look like for us as an employer and as a recruiter. So that's a really interesting point.
Hello, Chief. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I think with what Christine just said, I think it makes a lot of sense. Another thing I want to say is, I want to ask you a question about, do you have a minority group association within APD? As in, even though you recruit people, I'm talking about, do you have an association within APD that the minority group will be able to discuss their cause and their problems and their challenges, so that you can understand the problems that they are facing, the reason why they want to come in, the reason why they want to stay, the reason why we have some issues with retention or turnovers. You have to understand that, because majorly in good organizations, I'm talking about big organizations, they have groups so that they can channel their causes in a way that would empower them and it will empower the organizations to know where the problem is, and so they can move in a very strategic direction. I don't know if you have that. Otherwise, that could be, it's not just for us to come in. It's another thing is, can you, like what Kristen said, is there a place for me here so that I can sit down, I can be okay, I can leave, I can work with everybody in a way that would be promotion, everything is okay for me. So do you have that group?
Not a formal group like that. We do informal meetings. We have our typical evaluations where we sit down with officers on a regular basis and talk about careers and career paths and encourage them to look in different areas, ask them what kind of training they want, things like that. But we don't have a separate group like you're speaking to. But again, it's another great idea. All right. I have to move through real quickly here. I promised you guys an hour and a half, 2 hours, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to stick with that. So this is all really good feedback. Really good feedback. I'm gonna move that onto the agenda for next month when we have our next meeting with use of force. And that'll give us some time to take a look at some of these suggestions that you guys made. One of the other questions, I just wanted to make sure I answered this. Question was asked about our educational level for our officers. We have 109 officers. 24 of the officers have associate's degrees, which is 22%. 74% of our officers have a bachelor's degree. So at 68% of our officers have a bachelor's degree. and 11 of them have masters, so that's 10% of our staff. To be a supervisor at APD, you have to have at least a bachelor's degree to even become a supervisor. We highly value education. We still have multiple officers pursuing advanced degrees. Of our supervisory group, 30% of our supervisors have master's degree. So I'm not sure who asked that question. I just wanted to make sure I got that out there for you. So I'm going to try to do my screen share here. Anybody have questions on the educational portion? I don't see any hands. All right, I'm going to pull up a quick PowerPoint, and I know I sent this to you, and we're running a little behind, so I'm going to probably push through this fairly quickly and let you guys just ask any questions or give any comments that you might have, because I do want to get to the community survey. All right. Can somebody give me a thumbs up? Do you see our community engagement PowerPoint? Oh, awesome. Never thought I'd be able to do that. It worked. So I'm going to run through this PowerPoint. I know I sent this to everybody a few weeks ago, but just in case you have any questions on it. So the number one topic that you guys wanted us to talk about and present on was community engagement. Community engagement really falls under our inclusion and engagement coordinator pillar, that 5-pillar program that we had talked about, our 5-pillar initiative we created back in 2015 and 16. And then we'll also talk about the community survey a little later on when I give you those results. Probably the most well-known program we have is our Neighborhood Watch program. Martha sent me a question about this. We do have 84 Neighborhood Watch groups that are active in the city. Many of them are in our neighborhoods that are populated more highly with the minority community members. So we do have very active Neighborhood Watch groups in those communities, neighborhoods. We have an annual neighborhood captain meeting in April, and it's our national night out is something we're pretty proud of that I'll talk about a little later. Our volunteer program is amazing. Beth manages our volunteer program. We have 57 volunteers. We did receive the IACP, that's International Association of Chiefs of Police Award, as one of the top 3 volunteer programs in the world, not just the country, a couple years ago. It's amazing. One of the saddest parts of COVID is that our volunteers aren't able to come in because we're so used to seeing them in here every day of the week. And it's sad we don't get to see them, but very proud of our volunteer program. Police Explorer Group, that's what I talked about a little earlier. We've got 15 members right now. We use it to recruit and try to mentor future law enforcement officers. SROs, you're all familiar with our SROs. We have 12 school resource officers. It's a partnership with the school district. The school district reimburses us 40% of the wages for the school resource officers. So that's their contribution for the program. We just did celebrate our 40th anniversary of the school resource officer program. It's the oldest in the state. Public Safety Academy, if you have not had the opportunity to go through this, I would encourage you to as soon as we have it up and running again. It truly is a lot of fun. The pictures you see, you actually get to do all that stuff, but you really get to get hands-on and see what the officers do behind the scenes and how they train and some of the equipment they have and some of the policies that we follow. Social media. Again, this is a huge footprint for us nowadays. We are the 4th most followed Facebook page in the state of Wisconsin. We are after Kenosha, Milwaukee, and we are closing in on Green Bay. Not as quickly as I'd like, but we're closing in on them. We see Megan Cash on there. She manages our social media page. Dave Lund, Sergeant Dave Lund, should get a lot of credit for taking our social media to where it's at. He really built it up from the ground up. We're engaged in all these other social media platforms also. National Night Out 2019, we were ranked one of the top 20 in the nation for our National Night Out. We expanded it beyond just our neighborhood event to a citywide event that we hosted in Houdini Plaza. That was a lot of fun and was well attended. Lights of Christmas, this is a organization, Q90 is a radio station, and they provide blessing bags for law enforcement agencies, I think from Wausau all the way down to Sheboygan now. And they provide them to us to give to those that are less fortunate or homeless that we come in contact with during the winter months. School resource officers use this and the coupons frequently. They'll identify families in their schools that are in need or less fortunate, and they'll make sure that they get them some of the Lights of Christmas gifts. We do have a bike ambassador program. It's a volunteer bike program. You see some of them there. They will patrol the parks, the city streets. They're really kind of our eyes and ears out there during the summer. I think I talked about this last time. This is our crime prevention screens. This is the positive contacts that we ask our officers to get out of the squads and do. Instead of just tracking citations and tickets and warnings that they issue, we also count the positive contacts. So that's a crime prevention screen. And last year we had a little over 7,000 of those in the city. Badges and Bobbers was created by one of our sergeants who obviously has a passion for fishing, but that has really grown to the point where we get several hundred students that engage in that every year. Summer of Service. This was created back in 2015. One of our community liaison officers, Sean Keither, had this idea for years to create a summer program for students that were struggling with attendance or behavioral issues in the schools, to try to find them something positive to do during the summer months. So for a month during the summer, Monday to Friday, 8 hours a day, we have 25 to 30 students who had struggled with attendance or behavioral issues that will attend this Summer of Service event and training for that month. And they will do a lot of positive community things. They did works in the park. They'll work at Riverview Gardens. A lot of the murals that you see across town are projects that they did. So that's been a really positive, pretty powerful program that was put together. The graduation ceremony that they hold at the end, usually one of the judges come and he speaks, and then a couple of the students speak. And I have not been to one yet where there has not been tears by many of the students and many of their parents, just because of the pride that they have seeing their kids being successful. So that's an amazing program. Special Olympics, again, we're involved in all the Special Olympics runs and fundraisers. SNOWDROP Foundation, this has kind of been an adopted charity of ours. SNOWDROP is a fundraiser for scholarships for children with cancer and survivors. So we've got a lot of officers that participate in some of their pretty challenging events to raise money and awareness. A couple of them are, you see some of the pictures. There's a 50-mile fall 50 up in Door County, where it's a 50-mile ultra marathon, and we've got a team of officers that have run that in their SWAT gear, which was just amazing. Homeless liaison positions, our community liaison officer, Greg Ryan, and our behavioral health officer, Sergeant Nacho Enriquez, they meet weekly with pillars and they discuss case management. People that we are running into out in the streets and having calls on that are clients of theirs, we meet and discuss proper responses, what type of services they're getting. And then we also attend some of these other events that are listed there. We do have a refugee liaison officer, Sergeant Carrie Peters. She is a pretty amazing person. She provides training resources to our refugees in the community. When we get new refugees in the community, she will meet with them and she will do training sessions with them to let them know what law enforcement is in the United States, and specifically in Appleton. Many of them come from areas where the military is the law enforcement. So she spends a lot of time trying to build relationships with them and educating them, doing presentations, preparing handouts like this in their language for them to read. But also she brings a lot of that information back to our officers. So she will provide training to our officers, including roll call training and PowerPoints and videos on how to better relate to some of our refugees in the community. And I know Innocent is familiar with this. We just talked about this yesterday. But they have started what, I don't know what the formal name is, but we call it the Refugee School. Sergeant Peters is working with the school resource officer, Officer Donosky up at North High School in the Appleton Area School District to, and using the school impact grant money to begin these monthly meetings with refugee students. They've done high school students already. I believe they're doing middle school students. And what they do is they bring them together. Unfortunately, it's all virtual now, but eventually it'll be in person. And they talk about building relationships and questions they have about law enforcement. Just trying to build that trust again and let them feel comfortable around law enforcement and feel more comfortable in our community. We also have liaisons with CASA, HISPANA, and Hmong American Partnership for many years. We participate in a lot of their events. We have a Harbor House liaison. Sergeant Lori Dubin is our liaison with the Harbor House. She works a lot with the district attorney's office and the victims, doing a lot of follow-up with them, building relationships, doing check-ins, assisting the DA if they need more work done on a case, and kind of being that face of the APD at Harbor House. And that's Sergeant Lori Dubin. Now we'll talk about the survey in a little bit. We'll talk about our behavioral health program in one of the coming months, but this is Sergeant Enriquez. If you've ever met Nacho, he's a pretty amazing person. He's a police officer. He is a former school resource officer, and he also has his master's in counseling. He works as our go-between between consumers and their families and the service providers. So he'll work on creating relationships with them, but he also educates our officers, much like Sergeant Peters does with our refugees. Sergeant Enriquez will educate our officers on how best to respond to somebody that's in a mental health crisis, works with our elopement forms, and he also manages our law enforcement addiction assistance program. That's the program where if people have an addiction and they come into our station, they turn over their drugs, or they come to us for help. We've created relationships with the providers that we can fast track them into treatment and getting assistance instead of waiting on a list for weeks or months to get some type of treatment. This is a growing area of concern, elder abuse. We are part of a CCR, a coordinated community response team. Wisconsin Department of Justice received a grant, and we're one of, I believe, 6 counties in the state that was awarded this grant. So we've held training like you see below with community members and trying to coordinate what the community response is going to be to all the different forms of elder abuse that there are, unfortunately, in our community. You've seen all these posted before, the informal get-togethers with cops. Fair and impartial policing. This is probably the best anti-bias training available in the country. It is mandatory for every one of our police officers. So when they get hired, they sit down with one of our trainers. Usually it's Assistant Chief Potter, but Lieutenant Jack Tashner is also a certified trainer in this. And they talk to them about your biases and identifying what your biases are, and then learning how to not respond to them, learning how to consciously be aware of them and not act on them. Transparency whenever possible. You know, we've started posting our use of force review and our report on our website every year. We put our policies on there for use of force and body cameras. Whenever we've had an unfortunate officer involved death or a critical incident, when the investigation is completed, we will post the entire report for the community to review. We've got a APD feedback email address where anybody can send an email at any time if they have a question or concern that comes directly to me. I'm the only one that sees it, and I will respond to every one of them. And then most recently, we started the Inquire, Inform, Improve portion of our website, and I just added some information to that late last week. I had a meeting with many of you might know Pastor Mans up at the sanctuary on Wisconsin Avenue, but I was invited to a meeting with him and some of his members, and a lot of really good questions, and they gave me permission to post the questions and my responses on that website. So that's on that website. We'll keep building that up, kind of like a blog. And then we have a crime mapping tool added to our website. So if you go to our website, there's a picture of I think it looks like a laptop now, but you click on that and you can bring up real-time crime data and search for what's happening in your neighborhood. We continue to have these community conversations, pre-COVID, obviously. A couple other things we're doing. I serve on Dr. Barrett's Diversion and Inclusion Advisory Board at Lawrence. We've done other events with the Islamic Church. We did start a panel and coordinate a panel talking about the immigration experience several years ago when that was a hot topic. There's a lot of unrest over that issue. I am a member of the National Law Enforcement and Immigration Reform Task Force and the Leaders to Reduce Crime and Incarceration. We continue to have community conversations at Lawrence Thursday evening. I believe the mayor and Karen and myself will be having a discussion, which will be online, talking about safety in the community. That's being hosted by Lawrence University. And then we have our training Tuesdays and our regular postings that we do on social media. So I'm going to stop the screen so I can see you guys. So that was kind of a quick rundown of our community engagement programs and projects. So I'm kind of interested in hearing feedback and what you guys, suggestions you may have. Martha, I saw your hand first. Sorry.
Not any feedback, just kudos to Nacho. I saw he's part of the Future 15 in the Fox Cities. So awesome for him.
I got to tell you, we've been giving him a little bit of a hard time because I think it was like the young Future 15s was how it was classified. Yeah, so there's been a lot of discussion about how, how do you define young nowadays? So he's Nacho, he's just an amazing guy. Thank you. Kristen, I think you're next.
Okay, so on the neighborhood watch slide, when you were talking, I was trying to figure out if you said that, did you say that there are a lot, sorry, I have a baby in the background. Is there a lot more neighborhood watch people, you said, in minority neighborhoods?
No, we pulled the ESRI, the data on where the larger population of our minority community members live, and the majority of it is in downtown or just east of the downtown area. And we do have neighborhood watch groups in all those areas. I don't know if those community members are involved in the groups or not, but they do have neighborhood watch groups in those areas.
Have you found ever that had, I've always heard about neighborhood watch. I never really knew anyone that did it, but have you ever had any negative circumstances where neighborhood watch is picking on homeless people in the park or always reporting, somebody who they don't like rather than a crime?
Not usually, but it happens. It has happened. We've had people that have, like you said, complained about certain individuals or homeless people in their park that don't belong in their park, but they're not doing anything. We've had those complaints. But
so in those circumstances, what do you guys do? So you have a neighborhood watch person that calls the police on, you know, a couple people in the park, or, you know, maybe there's people that look suspicious. You know, what do you do? Are in those circumstances, are your officers checking it out and then telling the neighborhood watch people, hey, you watched wrong? Or
They will follow up with the person that called, but we train, part of our fair and impartial policing, and we've been doing it for years, training on it for years, is we talk about bias by proxy. You know, just because somebody calls and says that we should check out something, we need more. Somebody just sitting in the park isn't illegal. Somebody just walking down the sidewalk isn't illegal. So we're not going to make a contact with them. We're not going to approach them unless we have a reasonable suspicion that they're doing something illegal or wrong. So we will clarify with the caller. A lot of times it's a phone call, just clarifying what they're complaining about actually. And at times, like you mentioned, at times there is nothing illegal going on, and we just don't, we close it out and we don't follow up. So that's part of protecting against that bias by proxy. I think I saw Kanan.
Yep. And to add to what you're saying, Chief, if I may, that might be what you do in those situations, but that's not always what happens with the officers on the street. But I did have a couple points I want to ask. I noticed you mentioned like the National Night Out and the Summer of Service. How are those advertised? Are they only advertised on the Facebook page, on the police Facebook page? Because I mean, I've been here a long time. I've never heard of any of these events.
Really?
I'm wondering how, you know, it's just a small part of the community only hearing about these events as well.
Yeah, National Night Out is it's a pretty big deal. It's nationwide. It's on all the media, all the TV stations usually go out and they do live broadcasts. We put it out on our Facebook pages. There's media releases on it. So that's well advertised. The summer of service, that is usually, the students are selected by the SROs and the social workers in the school district. So they'll identify kids that they think would be good candidates for the program because they want them to be successful. And the vast majority of the kids that apply for it, enter it, graduate from it. So that's not something that we take applications on. That's something where the school district, the social workers, and the SROs get together and they try to identify the kids to be part of the summer of service program.
So that's a,
go ahead.
Sorry, just what Kenan said is very important. Is the way the information are being channeled is not reaching out to the community. So we don't hear any information about what you're saying, even though it's I watch TV most of the time. I read books. I do a lot of stuff. So, but you still don't come across this information. So probably maybe just very few people are paying attention to this. So the question is, how do you make sure that this gets to the community? So if we are looking to be diversified in one way or the other, that would be my understanding here.
Well, I guess, you know, like National Night Out is that's something that's talked about pretty regularly in you know, the media, social media. There's posters that are put up. I guess I'd be interested in what suggestions, what else we could do to try to get the message out. I know, you know, that is one, as I get to the community survey here, it's one of the areas that we always can do better in. It's one of the areas we score the lowest in is how are we communicating what's going on? And again, that's something that, you know, we look at it as, are we putting out too much information? Because we feel like we're always blasting information out on social media, doing media releases, doing interviews, going to meetings, going to events. But clearly we're not doing enough to get the message out across,
So you have
across the entire community.
So you have a recruitment manager, right, within the APD?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess probably maybe that it could start from there. So to find a better way to, I don't know, maybe guys on the call here, but the question is, how do we make sure that information opportunities within the APD, how does it get across to the entire community so that it doesn't get clogged into one side? So I think that is one thing that we need to.
Okay. Elijah?
So do we have another social media page besides our Facebook page? Because I know a lot of people in my generation, we use Instagram, Snapchat, but we don't really watch the news a lot. We don't look at Facebook. So is there any way that you're trying to connect with the high schoolers?
Yeah, I know we've got so many, I've got to have a sheet to keep track of all of them. But we've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, and a YouTube channel.
Sounds good, thanks.
Yep. Irma.
Okay, great. I have 3 points I want to make.
Okay.
One, first I wanted to say thank you for this effort, because what you presented, Chief, is a lot of good information. What caught my attention are 3 things. One, I'm gonna build on what Oladimeji mentioned, and also I believe it was Kanan. And that is reaching via different channels, the specific communities, and different channels, and the way marketing channels are consumed. They're consumed and related differently, but yes, so we talked about that, but I don't want that to get lost, because there is such things as different consumption of the media channels. The second thing I wanted to make, it's more of the implicit bias comment that you made, Chief, about training. So what I understood is that you have a session with the recruits, the new officers, about implicit bias, although I don't quite understand what that training is. But nonetheless, how do we sustain that implicit bias training with existing officers, as well as a continuous training objective? And that's my second point. The third point I have is, or question, is about training the community. You know, earlier, I believe Kristen made a really good point as it relates to specific examples. What do we do with individuals that call because you have a person of color and they're afraid, when in reality, there's no transgression? And so, and again, I don't know if this is your responsibility or the mayor. I know the mayor was on the call, and you know, it's an integrated effort as to how do we educate about diversity, about different cultures and different code of engagement, and those sorts of things, which is a bigger objective for our community.
Right. Okay, let me, great point. The ongoing training for the bias training, it's part of what I talked about with Sergeant Peters, where she meets with our different refugee members, and then she'll provide training back to the department. But we also do ongoing bias training. It's not just one time. It's included in a lot of our different training, and we use that in our evaluations when we meet with officers. We talked about that. As far as educating the community, one of our 5 pillars is actually education. If you remember the slide that I showed before with the community survey on it, because we realize that educating the community, it's educating ourselves first, but also then telling the community what we do and why we do it. So that has been one of our pillars. If you've been on our website or Facebook page, we actually have branding videos that we put out that we use to recruit officers, and I would encourage you to take a look at them. Actually, I'm going to make a note to send you a link to them. But we use those branding videos to recruit officers from other areas, or to go in the academies and recruit officers. And it talks about the Appleton Police Department. And we have diverse officers that are speaking on those videos to try to recruit officers. That's part of educating the community. We give, you know, you go to, and Kristen talked about going to job fairs, and we all have the table set out, and we have our little pamphlets and pictures set out for recruitment. We have these little USB sticks here, I don't know if you can see it. But we hand these out to recruits, and on this USB stick, it's got all the information on the Appleton Police Department and what we do and our hiring processes, and it's got all those videos. So they can just take this with them and use it however they want, but we also have the branding videos on that. But like I mentioned, when I get to the community survey, you're going to see that still is an area that the community says we are not doing enough work on. We're not sharing what we do, and we're not communicating enough on what we do. You were on our Facebook page a couple weeks ago. You saw we started a new program, traffic stops. The first episode was basically why can you get stopped? What does an officer need to stop you? The second episode, which is what they're working on now, they'll roll it out soon, is what do you do when you are stopped? So if you're stopped by a police officer, it's going to walk you through the best way to respond and what you should do. And then we'll take it from there. But that's just part of the things we're doing to try to address that issue of educating. And Ben.
So to the point of the information not getting out to the people, a lot of information just, being missed or just not going out there. Have you engaged with Karen or the SROs, or like Amy said, right, Amy, you teach the criminal justice class? Yeah, like people who do these things. I mean, that's a bunch of different populations. I know Karen has her finger on the pulse of a lot of the businesses and everything that are, all over the board. And if the teachers get it, they can get the information. The SROs can pass it out, just waste it different populations.
Yes, we do use them, but again, obviously we need to do some more of that. So we'll, I mean, you're talking Karen Nelson, right? Yes, okay, because there's a couple Karens in the city. I don't know if you're talking about Karen Harkness, but no, we do work with Karen Nelson. Obviously, she's got her finger on the pulse for us. Keith, and then I saw Joy.
Yeah, just to comment on how to get that information out to people. I'm not originally from Appleton. I moved here probably about 15 years ago. Ever since I've lived here, I've heard about this, that National Night Out. One of the things that the new neighborhood that I live in is someone in the neighborhood made their own Facebook page for the neighborhood. So when we talk in here about how do we get that information out, well, it could be up to you yourself to just start a Facebook and Instagram, go around to your neighbors, put a piece of paper on their door saying, hey, we're starting this group. And so all the neighborhood can share this information, because just because you didn't hear about it doesn't mean that some of your neighbors didn't hear about it. And so, if you bring that community into it, you could be the one that starts it all. So I think that's something we're forgetting when we talk in this group. We're saying, Chief, how do you get this information out? But it's really up to us. That's why we're in this group, is to provide these ideas and concepts. So, I mean, like I said, our neighborhood had this started when I moved in. So there's probably 300 people on this Facebook group. It's a private group on Facebook that's our neighborhood. So you can bring up concerns of the neighborhood, anything from this neighborhood night out, things like that. So it's just an option. And I know some of the younger people on here are like, we don't use Facebook, but that's where maybe you can go with Instagram or something like that. I mean, you throw a couple different things out there. I know there's a program called, or an app called Nextdoor. You can use that also. There's other things like that. But I think what we're forgetting here is, we keep going back to the chief and saying, what are you doing to get this information out there? Well, that's up to us. I mean, that's why we're here to give our input on how to fix things like this or how to change things. So I think that's what we have to remember when we're talking through this group. So that's what I wanted to share.
If I may, real quick.
Yes, Kenan.
Well, I'm gonna just come out and say it because it seems nobody else want to say it, and maybe I'm the one who's supposed to say it. So it's a big disconnect with the Black community and police. This has been an issue for many years. So I feel like when we're talking about inclusion, it may be an extra step that needs to happen with the police department to reach out to these communities. I'm in it every day. So of course, I'm saying I do my part, but I do think, especially with the climate of the country right now and everything that's been going on, we do got to consider that fact. I don't know any I probably could name on one hand the amount of people that I know that's on Appleton Police Department's website. People of color. It's not too many. That's not really what we would do. You know, that's not really what a lot of us would do. You know, we try to stay as far away from police as possible. A lot of us has been in situations to where we've been affected negatively by police, whether we done something wrong or not. And I mean, we can argue this point, but me personally, I've been through a lot in my life, even living here in Appleton. I do think Appleton has come a long way, but it is a lot of work that got to be done in this community when it comes to inclusion. And yeah, that to me that's the biggest part.
So how do we do that, Kanan? How do we how do we reach out to those people that don't want to be part of us, don't want to follow our Facebook page? How do we do that? What's our avenue of having that discussion and getting information and building that trust? I think you really got to get out there. I think the police officers really got to get out there in the community, in those very same communities that they have the most police calls or people of color in. The police just got to get out there and create relationships. I think that's something that has to happen. I see you do it, Chief Thomas, but you doing it isn't enough. You know, like I say, we started talking about these nights out and all of these events that I'm telling you that I've never heard of. So a person in my position and in my job, for me not to have heard of something that's going on in Appleton, that's pretty significant. I'm not just a normal person in the community that I would hear these things. Right. Yep. Understand that.
So my thought, just to follow up on what you said, Kanan, my thought is that, you know, what we have going on with People of Progression, like that's a community group, you know, you got all these community groups. My thought is thinking that, you know, you might have something come out on the APD, like press release, you know, release or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Like Kanan said, that a lot of times, you know, I'm only a part of that page now because of, you know, the work I'm doing in the community. I was never a part of that page, but so maybe even when you're going to do a press release or whatever you would call that on this sort of subject, maybe going to the community groups and reaching out to leaders first so they can even prepare something to coincide with that release. So it's not, you know, People of Progression, we have to share it from the APD website. You know, we could have something prepared that said the same points that you have going on, but we don't have to share it from your website. So people aren't like, oh, like I'm not going to go to that because it's, you know, the police department is, you know, just a way that it seems more inclusive. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. And then maybe that's something we can work with Karen on how to do that, how to identify those groups. Hopefully in the long run, I think we all hope that we see the day where there isn't that mistrust, where you guys can follow the Facebook page of APD and are comfortable doing that. And but I know it's going to take time to get there, and we have work to do. So.
Yeah, sorry, just Chief, if I can just chip in one thing here. Kate, I know you mentioned about some private groups, but I don't think that works when it comes to being systemic in terms of an organization. You want to get something done in an official way so that everybody can get along. So that is my thought process is Karen has a lot of connections to the HMONG, to Hispanic, to he has some emails and stuff like that. But I think we have to find a way to connect to all these groups in a way that they can probably follow the Facebook, follow the Instagram, follow some of the social media by themselves. So that communication has to be sent out, because if Karen wants to reach me right now, it blasts it out through some Christian community group. It gets to me. I have access to some pastors, Fox Valley, gets to everybody. So we need to find a way. First of all, we have to make sure we get the database that Karen is using. I don't know what database she's using, to make sure that we have a connecting dot to every group in Appleton. I think she has a kind of database. So we have to make sure all of them follow the social media. I think that is the best option right now for everybody to get a very good understanding of what is going on per time. And so if there's any formal release as well, probably maybe that can go through the community leaders, like Christian has said, so that they can blast that out, so that everybody can be on the up to date on that. So that's my thought
Appreciate
process
that.
right now.
Yeah, I've got a note here that talks to Karen about that. See what
Okay.
you have. What I have. Is that?
Just to piggyback off of what Kanan had said, we know that Chief Thomas, you're participating in the community, but the SROs that are in the school, and I know that it's not the same issue right now because we're not in person in Appleton, right? But the SROs, I don't know if they're having only negative contact with students, but could it be that they could be more proactive in having positive contact with students? Just call them in to say, hi, how are you? I'm good. Sharing this community event with you. Create a friendship, create trust. I mean, I think that that's one extension that could create something positive.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, the SRO program is something I'm sure we're going to do a presentation on, but by far the majority of their contacts are positive.
Okay.
They do not have they have very few negative contacts.
Okay.
They make very few arrests in the schools, and people that work in the schools can tell you that. They're there to mentor, build relationships, help kids and families that are struggling, build trust. That's where we start building our trust in the community.
Okay.
Is at that young age. I don't have the exact percentage now, but just in the last 5 or 6 years, if you saw, again, going back to our 5-pillar initiative, one of our pillars was youth mentoring and engagement. That was one of our 5 pillars because that is how important it is. And Lieutenant Frisch, I don't know if you know Lieutenant Mike Frisch, he was tasked with making sure that our SRO is focused on relationship building, mentoring, diversion, not citations. And we've reduced the number of citations we've issued to juveniles just in the last 5 years by over 60%. I mean, it's rare that we issue citations to juveniles in schools. We let school sanctions deal with the school issues, but our purpose is there to be a resource, just like the title says. So, but again, like you mentioned, that's a good way to reach out because a lot of the schools have different groups for their different minority group members as far as contacting and connecting with them and getting information out. I saw Elijah.
So from a student's point of view, I've only had one contact with our SRO, and that was freshman year during a full school presentation. And I know it's incredibly unreasonable to ask them to make an interaction with every student in the high school or anything like that. But is there more like large group things that you can work with the schools to do more like, presentations or something? Because besides that, the only other things I've seen our SRO do is arrest people or when the drug dogs come in or something like that.
Right. You're at a high school, right? Yeah, you're at the high
North.
North, yep. Yeah, that's something that we can talk about. Actually, North is where the refugee school was held. Your SRO is the one that put that together, Officer Janoski. So they're involved in those programs. Daniel, I think so. Daniel and then Joy.
I was actually going to offer that up. Joy, I know you got skipped, so please go ahead.
Sorry, Joy.
Oh, this is very kind. Thank you. First, thank you, Chief. So many great connections that are already in place. One question that I have is about the LGBTQ community. It sort of seems to be missing from the community connections and liaisoning, and that's certainly a group that I think doesn't necessarily feel super welcome in our community either. And it would be great if the police department embraced them somehow. So I'm just wondering if what connections there are there if there are some in progress, just what's happening with the LGBTQ plus community.
Yes, we reached out to Diverse and Resilient when they opened their office, and we've reached out before that to Kathy Flores and offered to meet and have meetings. Sergeant Lori Dubin, who is our Harbor House liaison officer, she also is the liaison for the LGBTQ community. So she has met with, I don't know if you know Nick, up at Diverse and Resilient. Nick Ross is actually the individual who kind of runs that group. But she has reached out to him. She's met with them. She knows that they know how to get a hold of her to be as a resource. Again, understanding that we want to make sure they're comfortable with us. So much like we do with the other liaison officer positions, that's what she's done. So we didn't have a slide on it, but we do have somebody that's assigned to try to liaise with them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Innocent. Then you, Dan. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
I'm sorry.
But Innocent, sorry.
Chief, I just wanted to say I do work with the school district, and we've been talking about the school resource officers. I just wanted to say they are doing a great job. I've seen different instances with different groups of students that I work with, and situations where they are really wrong and they should be punished, and they have chosen not to give citations or to give them a punishment for that reason, and they are choosing they are deciding other things like counseling or referring them to social workers or other different organizations where they can receive the help that they really need. So I've been really impressed by what they are doing, especially with my clients. And I'm very grateful that this is how they choose to handle this kind of situation. So some of the students are involved in some of the unacceptable behavior. And I wanted to thank you for that.
Good, thank you, Innocent. Appreciate that very much. Where'd you go, Dan? My screen keeps moving around on me, so.
It's fine, Chief.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I wanted to say to Kanan, thank you for what you said. And I'm saying this because I will never truly understand your perspective unless we have the discussion. And I think that's a conversation that Chief Thomas and I had. One of the things I'm most looking forward to is to learn from all of you, because I have a very different perspective and opinion. Full disclosure, my degree is criminal justice. I've been through the hiring processes to be a police officer. It's not the path God chose for me, but I've done it, been there, been in those recruitments. When we talk use of lethal force, I've been through the training scenarios to use it. But on the same token, I also appreciate Keith's point of view too in what he said, and it's something I firmly believe in. We were brought together for a reason as a group, and we're going to have great discussion and we're going to come up with ideas, but we need to support the people that wear that badge somehow, some way. There is a huge burden on all of them. And Kanan pointed out, with the climate of the country the way it is, it's even more of a burden now to wear that shield than ever before. So what can we do to help with that burden? Asking them for, what do you need from us, or what can we do? And then how do we educate our community and our friends and our fellowship? Because folks, I've interned, I've been to Racine, I've been to Kenosha. We have an amazing, amazing group of young men and women and individuals that protect us and serve this community. It is a fantastic, fantastic agency. And not every community is as blessed as we are to have the one that we have. So we need to be able to get out there and be proud of it and tell people we're proud of it. But I don't know some of the struggles everyone's faced. So I'm looking forward to learning that. And I just wanted to say, Ken, I do appreciate you at least bringing the elephant into the room and talking about it. And I look forward to further discussions and learning from you. So that's it.
Great comments. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. Well said. Beth too, or Irma.
Unless there was someone else that wanted to chime in, because I feel like I've spoken too much tonight.
Oh, not at all.
For being the first time, you guys are going to put an X on me. But I also want to echo what Danielle said. I really appreciate, but Kanan, I think that was very courageous of you, because there is racism, and I want to name it as it is. Racism is real. There is implicit bias, which is different. We all have it. And there is such thing as we do invest in the majority, and we do invest more in the majority. And one thing that I heard from Kanan was a solution, actually. And the solution that Kanan brought, and Kanan, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the solution he brought, he said, Chief Thomas, you come and engage with us, but you're not going to be enough as a one person. And I feel like there was so much, the solution there was, we need a team, we need the community, we need me, you, everyone to be able to engage with the minority groups and make us visible to them, and connect and relate with them, in terms of not us bringing the solution of this is the way. Because I do appreciate, Keith, what you said, but I'm going to be also very upfront. I'm obviously a transplant. That is a very, that is a bias within a community that may address the solution that way, but it may be completely different for a different culture. And so I think it's a complex problem. It's not an easy one. And in no way I believe the responsibility is only on you, Chief Thomas, and your team. I do believe we're all part of the solution. And as such, what I heard from Kanan was a solution, actually. So I really appreciate this. I would be the first to say, wow, I was impressed with the initiative, Chief Thomas, you took and will support. And that means we're opening up very uncomfortable conversations that we need to be comfortable with. We need to be uncomfortable. We need to be comfortable with uncomfortableness. Last comment, and I will be quiet after that promise. And that is, I'm very active on social media, and I do follow the conversation. And I've been, at times, I've been truly bullied, and or been extremely, belittled in one way or another. And as much as I try to take the high road, the question I have is the following. And I think, again, I'm not expecting an answer, Chief Thomas, but I know that often the way social media is managed is there is a post and people are battling that post. Is there a place for whomever is monitoring, interject and educate? Because rarely do I see anyone on social media from the post really interjecting, educating, putting the boundaries, and taking a side, taking a position instead of staying neutral.
Right. No, and if you go through our social media page, you'll see where we've called people out when they make comments that are hateful or threatening. The challenge that we have as a public agency is we can't control the social media. It's kind of the two-edged sword of technology. If you're going to have social media and a Facebook page, you better be ready to take everything that comes with it. So we have regulations we have to follow. We have to retain all of our records. We can't edit people's posts. So it's very challenging. We're not like the private sector. It really truly is a public venue. It is kind of the public forum, if you will. And for us to go in and try to edit people it's illegal, but it's also very, it can actually incite more people, as you've probably seen, to become even more hateful, sadly. So I appreciate your comments on Kanan. Kanan did have great ideas there and suggestions.
If I could say one more thing, Chief Thomas, it reminds me of our very first meeting, and when I brought up inclusion. We really, in my opinion, we really need to figure out a way to get more Black officers on the force ASAP. When you think about, the Black community feeling comfortable with the police department, it really, and it's not just the police department, it's the school board, it's the teachers, it's the mailman, it's everybody. You know what I mean? The more inclusion we see in our community, the better community we're going to have. And it's not diversity, it's inclusion. We need inclusion. So you said it's a couple Black officers that's on the force. You said that they've been on the force for quite a while. These officers need to get promoted. These officers need to be in a better position to where they can lead the new officers that you bring in. That's just my last 2 cents. I'm not going to say nothing else. I'm going to try not to.
I agree with you, but they don't want to be promoted. They love the jobs they have, so that is what it is. I can't make them be promoted. It's not for everybody. But
everybody like a little promotion. You can't tell me that somebody don't want to get promoted, get paid a little bit more money.
I'm still waiting for your application, Kanan. I just looked. I haven't seen your. We're hiring, but not everybody wants to be promoted. Believe it or not, especially nowadays, things are a little different. But
Chief, I want to say something about this as well before we wrap up. I have a concern about recruitment outside the APD. I'm talking about Appleton City on its own. I want to use myself as an example. I have applied to some organization here that you will see 10, maybe 2 to 3 hours later, you will see rejection that you are not fit for this position. I'm saying this, I was thinking maybe the mayor will be around here today to say there is, even though Appleton is welcoming in terms of community initiatives, but when it comes to recruitment, when it comes to accepting the minority in the community, helping them to work with my county, working in county, you can't work in a county as a Black man. It's very hard, or a Black woman is so hard. You just give me 1 or 2 people who are working in a county or in the school district right now that are Black. You can count them probably maybe 1 or 2. Why? So there's a major issue that this has to be discussed. I don't know why they block the fence around this. I don't know why they put a fence around it, but sometimes I think the mayor has to be talking about this. They don't want anybody to come in for one reason or the other. Somebody has to discuss about this. We have to find a way to enlighten these companies around this Appleton community to find a way of embracing diversity, but they don't do that. So it's something that is really, really going on. So I don't know what we need to do, but I think we have to find a better way to do this.
I appreciate that. I absolutely agree. I know Karen, I don't know if she's on anymore, but city has just become involved in some other programs, and I know that is a priority for the new mayor and for Karen, is to increase the diversity in our workforce across the entire city, and try to engage people from our minority community groups to become part of city government. Run for city council, become more visible and involved.
Yeah, but I think Karen has been there as well. Karen is here as well. I think she's been trying to get things done here. But I can tell you,
Thank you.
this is, to be frank with you, is something that it has to be, the leaders in this Appleton has to come together. They have to find a way to drive diversity in all these businesses around the place, to empower them to see how can we come into. People don't even understand the impact here. Guys, I want you guys to understand this. You are blocking people for getting to get into a place of opportunity. I did my master's here. We have other people. You spend thousands of dollars to come in here, and then you stay here. You did your school here. You did your master's here. And then when it comes to job, you don't have that access. You can imagine you have about 60,000, 20,000. If you're a doctor, you are owing, or you are just an ordinary person, you are owing about $50,000, but you cannot, they don't give you opportunity at all in whatever way. I don't mind sitting on the table with the mayor and all the business leaders here to talk to them and say, what are we doing? What are we really, really doing to help the minority to get some placement in this opportunity? So my understanding, what I'm building an applications right now to show you guys the effect of what the team is doing, especially what this community is doing on the Black or minority community. I'm building an application because I'm an IT guy, but I want you guys to see that hopefully it's going to come out in January or February. But I want you guys to understand that. But this is really, this affects the way we live. This affects the way the young people grow, the children grow. They push them towards the end of the line. They couldn't make it because there's no opportunity on the table. This is enough is enough of just talking. Is what measure, what action items do we need to put in place to get people in this opportunity? You can see they need to talk about it. They won't say it. I'm talking about my people who look like me, but they don't have that opportunity for one reason or another.
No, I appreciate that. You know, and I don't know if Karen was on a little while ago, she's still on, but
she wants to say something.
Yeah, there was a called the Government Alliance for Racial Equity that the city became part of, that Karen is co-chairing actually with the mayor. And I don't want to talk too much about it because it's their program, but it speaks to a lot of that. And there's action steps involved in timelines, and much like you spoke to, it addresses those issues and with real substance behind it and real action steps, and not just talk. So
thank you.
Yep, I don't know, Karen, I don't see her.
I think maybe she's doing something else.
Yeah. Paul. Hey, Paul. Oh, there's Karen.
Yes,
Sorry.
Go ahead. Yes, I am still here, Chief, and thank you so much, Pastor Tamari and Kanan and Kristen and everyone who have given me shout outs throughout the evening. I've been listening in. I just didn't want to take up any airtime because this is your board, but I am here working shoulder to shoulder with Chief Todd Thomas, and I report directly to the mayor. And so we are trying to bite off this, eat this elephant one bite at a time. That's all we can do. But we can't do it without you. I think I heard someone mention it momentarily ago, how important it is that it's not just one person working on diversity. That's the beauty of my position, is that I get to sit at the table in the mayor's leadership team. And it's not just Karen Nelson that's responsible for diversity. It's the entire leadership team led by the mayor. And I'm so grateful for the fact that I don't even think it's been mentioned so far yet, but the city of Appleton has declared racism as a health crisis on February the 18th of this year. So even prior to COVID, we were already laser focused on racial equity in the city of Appleton. And the chief is a part of my core team. The mayor and I co-chair the GARE, which is the Governmental Alliance on Racial Equity. Thank you for mentioning it, Chief. And also, that's one of the reasons why the mayor gave me grace. The former mayor, Tim Hanna, gave me grace to create the diversity and inclusion Facebook page. I know everybody's not on Facebook. I heard the young man mention that earlier, but that's that's the only one I have. But I am very, very grateful for that one outlet, because I get to post different content that is specifically about diversity and inclusion on the D&I page for the city. That's of course going to be different from my personal Facebook page. So I greatly appreciate that, having that extra mouthpiece, if you will, in terms of being the voice for the community. And I try to get into every single one of the 11 federally protected classes of communities within our community of Appleton. And I kind of stretch myself a little thin sometimes, but I really try to make it fair and equitable for all. So thank you all. I need all of your support, and keep these great ideas coming.
Thanks, Karen. Paul, go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, so I just want to go back to what Kieran was saying earlier on about communications chief. So, so as an openly gay man in Appleton, who's an immigrant, I'm married to a black man. So we've got a minority point of view here. And you mentioned a group called Diverse and Resilient. Never heard of them. So it's like Keenan. He's never heard of some of the things that you guys are putting out. So you're not touching my world. And so I just wanted to point that out to you, Chief. You know, you might think you are, but it's not reaching us.
Well,
so
I appreciate that. But yeah, Diverse and Resilient is not connected to the Appleton Police Department at all. It's the support group.
I understand that, Chief. Yes,
Yeah.
but we've never heard it. I asked my husband as well, and he'd never heard of them either.
Oh.
And I think John would have known of the group if anybody between the two of us. So, and then the other thing I want to talk to you about is the other conversation that's going on. There is deep systemic bias in this community. I lost my job because I'm gay, and it was under the guise of COVID. And everybody smiled and said, "Oh, was so sorry." It was just because I was openly gay and I didn't keep quiet. So, and that goes on in this community right now. So if that happened to me, just exactly what Keenan's saying, it happens all the time. You know, so just everything's not rosy, Chief.
No.
I just need you to know that.
No, we know that. Yeah, and again, I don't live your experience. So I don't know what you've lived. I apologize. Sorry that happened to you. Should be unacceptable in our community.
Well, a major corporation, yes, exactly.
Yeah, anywhere, anybody, it's unacceptable. Kristen.
Just let me clear. I stepped away for a second. Is this open floor to just ask relatable?
Down to that, but we're pretty relaxed.
Okay. I did have somebody from our People of Progression community who had asked me a question. I did post the meeting into our group a few days ago and asked if anyone had any questions. And she said that this wasn't exactly because APD is doing some really good things. She did say about the 8 can't wait.
Okay.
And so the 8 can't wait is can you just briefly explain that? And then
I'd have to pull it up there and make sure I got them all right again.
Actually, I have it right here.
I just pulled up the picture myself.
Okay. Yeah, it says 1 requires de-escalation, use of force.
Right.
Chokehold.
Well, their question was, are we following those? Is that a question?
So her question was, because this 8 can't wait, it is actually a really, really good thing. And so many police departments around the Fox Valley are doing it. And a lot of people would argue that the Fox Valley is like almost like one city. So when we're almost like one city because we're so close and you have one police department doing really great things and then one police department who's doing the lack thereof.
Right.
Is APD ever do you ever take that higher seat and almost put that good pressure on another neighboring city where you're like, we wouldn't let this happen in Appleton. Why aren't you doing this?
We have discussions. We have a countywide chiefs group that we have discussions on. I'm just looking at the 8 can't wait again. We've been doing all of these for as long as I can remember. And I remember when it came out, we looked at it and we thought, well, who isn't doing this? It's kind of what we thought.
I know that she had, and like I said, this isn't an APD thing, because the city of Appleton is actually doing this. And she said that you have said that you're doing this, but then we have the really neighboring cities that are almost basically Appleton. Let's just say that.
Right. Yeah. And I wouldn't know what they do, but I know they all follow the state model on defense and arrest tactics and firearms, and the majority of these are covered in that.
So for example,
I would know which department, if you know which department she's talking about, I can ask and check.
One of them I know was Green Bay, and I'm thinking that the other one was Nina or Oshkosh or something like that. And I was just wondering if you guys ever do take that higher seat and put good pressure on our neighboring cities who outright do not say that they agree with that. Like, I know Green Bay has openly said that they only will ever practice 6 and there will never be a 8 can't wait.
Yeah, I can't comment on what other departments say they'll do or they won't do. All we can do is try to lead by example, as far as trying to influence other departments, they have to make their own policy and they have to decide, and hopefully they make the right decision. But I speak for Appleton. But we do talk as a group in the county with the sheriff and the other police departments and the chiefs. And, from what I've heard and seen, we're all on the same page. So I'm not really sure how to answer her question. We'll lead by example. All right, I hate to move on to the next topic, but it's getting a little late and I want to get the survey results out yet. But it's been great discussion. I've got like 5 pages. Steph, I hope you're keeping up with notes because I know I've got like 5 pages of my chicken scratching I'm gonna have to try to read later.
Yeah, I'm at about 10.
Yeah, at about 10? Okay,
yeah.
Good. Hopefully you can read yours. All right, so I want to get to the survey and I know you guys probably aren't gonna have a lot of comments. It's gonna take some time to like absorb it and get your thoughts together. But I want to roll this out to you guys first. The only people that I've shared this with so far are the mayor, obviously, and some of the directors for the city, and then my supervisory staff and my police and fire commission. That's the group of people that are my bosses. So I've shared it with them. And we put it out on social media. Actually, it's probably gone out already. But we're a little behind schedule. I apologize. I will share the screen and I will run through this.
It made Facebook, Chief.
Figured that. I tried.
Chief, will we get a copy of the mask? Will we get a copy so I don't have to take notes while we're looking at this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can email you a copy here. Hold on. Do you see that or not?
Yeah.
All right. Did it come up? You did? All right, good. Okay. So I'll email you a PDF copy of this so you all have it. So like I mentioned, this is part of our 5-pillar initiative. This one has a little larger a group that we surveyed. So we sent out 2,000 surveys to both occupied owner occupied, and rentals in the city of Appleton. What we did was we had Community and Economic Development just randomly select addresses in the city based on density of population. So the higher the density in the district, the more surveys got sent to that district. We sent out 2,000. That's about 6.5% of the households in the city of Appleton. And we got a response rate of 34.4%. So 687 responses we got back, 687. We are able to also pull out data by district. So I can tell you what the people in District 1 said and how they responded. But I also can pull out data based on race, age, income level, and sex. So we were able to separate the surveys based on that criteria. What we'll do is we'll take a look at this. We'll compare it to what we had in 2018. So the next one is just a map. It's kind of an example of what the survey's distribution looked like across the city. And again, it's based on population area. So you'll see some areas where there's not a lot of surveys. That's because it's mostly under construction or not residential district. So the top 10 issues in the city of Appleton. On the left is 2018, on the right is 2019. Again, drug abuse continues to be the overwhelming #1 issue in our community. I can tell you that as of last week, we have already had 19 overdose deaths in the city of Appleton. That is more than double what we had all of last year. COVID, obviously, the lockdown, employment loss, the loss of support systems for people, difficulties in having access to services have all led to that. But that is just a tremendously high and disturbing number. So why drug abuse? Why is it such a huge issue in the community? I think a lot of it is because there's such a ripple effect with drug abuse and drug addiction. I know very few families, including my own, that have not been impacted by drug abuse. So that is an area that we're going to continue to focus on. If you go down the list on the right, traffic, the next three are all traffic issues. Speeding, reckless driving, distracted driving, those are always our most common complaint. And then domestic abuse. The one area that we saw a dramatic increase in from 2018 was people's concern over homeless and transient related problems and issues in the community. Again, a lot of that has been accelerated because of COVID and employment issues because of
Chief,
COVID.
could you make the slides full screen?
Oh,
because it's kind of hard to read.
Exactly.
They're not full screen?
No.
You can put it in presentation mode. Did you?
Let me stop sharing. Okay. I'm going to start this over again and see if I can get it to work. Still can't see it?
We can see it, but you have to put it in presentation mode, right?
So we're seeing all the slides on the side as well.
Okay, so I'm going to go, where was I at? How about now?
Now we see the note pages to the right.
Okay. Well, it was going good. Hold on 1 second. Yeah, I think I'm getting close. How about that? You see the full
That's
screen?
perfect. Yes.
All right, okay.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Can I ask a question about the
yes.
data that was, or the surveys?
Yes.
So on the 2018, like underage drinking is an option, but I don't see that in 2020. Were the choices the same in these two surveys or were they different?
Let me grab the survey. No, there were, phrasing was changed a little bit on a couple of them, from the homeless transient related problems to homeless or transient related problems, intoxication, panhandling. Underage drinking was listed, but it was not in the top 10.
Okay.
It was down actually near the bottom. So before we start talking about specifics, one of the first questions we asked was just the overall how safe do you feel in your neighborhood during the day. 97% of the people that responded said they felt safe or very safe in the neighborhood during the day. But 0.7% said they did not feel safe at all. So then we asked the next question, how do you feel at night in your neighborhood? And again, a little bit different, obviously, at night. 83% at that point said they feel safe at night in their neighborhood. 16% felt a little safe, but the people that felt not safe at all went up to 4%. So that's an area that we have to improve on, obviously.
Sorry, Chief, do you know the age bracket of the people that don't feel safe?
We can get it. I just have to run a report based on ages, but we'll be able to get that age. Near the end of the presentation, there'll be a slide that'll show the age of the 687 people. Went from 18 all the way into the 90-year-olds. So we'll be able to pull out that data to see which of these 28 people said they did not feel safe at all in their neighborhood, to tell if it was a younger, older generation. We'll also be able to tell what neighborhoods it happened in. Was it specifically a certain neighborhood in the city that happened in? So that's some of the micro data that we can dig into with the survey. Next couple questions are the two that we've really seen the lowest responses in, the lowest satisfaction numbers in the last couple surveys. The first one is visibility in the neighborhoods. 83% are satisfied with our visibility, but 17% are not. Generally, the comments are they wish we were more visible in the neighborhoods, getting out of our squad cars, walking in the parks, biking, talking with neighbors. The challenge with that is constantly, obviously, a staffing issue and having that discretionary patrol time to get out of the squad cars. That's why when we track our staffing model and where we assign officers and deploy them, we look at discretionary patrol time. We don't look at the number of calls they're on or the type of calls they're on. It really comes down to how much time do they have available to do proactive policing. So that's the discretionary time that we're challenged with. This is an area that we've been working on. I mentioned the crime prevention screens earlier. And that is one of the reasons why we created the crime prevention screens, was to try to address this issue of being more visible in the parks, being more visible in the neighborhoods, giving officers credit for getting out and doing these walk and talks and being in neighborhoods, not just giving them credit for writing a traffic ticket. But again, this is an area that we have to work on. We have to do much better on. And the next issue is always our number one complaint, and that's traffic enforcement. By far, so the concern that we get the most phone calls on, speeders, reckless drivers, and again, 13.9% are not satisfied with the level of effort we put into enforcing traffic laws, which is pretty consistent with what we've seen in the past. A lot of different ways that we can address that, but again, a lot of it comes down to staffing. We have been very active in getting grant money in the last several years for OWI enforcement and seatbelt enforcement and speeding enforcement. That seems to help us a lot in getting extra patrol time out in the streets and hitting those hot spots. So if we do get a complaint of an area where we have speeders, frequently we will put out what we have called a speed trailer, and it's just, you've probably seen it. It looks like the Oktoberfest signs that you see when you come into the avenue downtown, except it has a radar gun and it tracks the speed of the traffic on that street, so we can determine if it's a high speed area and where to assign traffic enforcement and officers. So, but again, this is an area that we need to, again, work on a little harder again.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Could you go back to the prior slide from the one that you just switched from? So the one on...
Or this one? The neighborhood at night?
Yes. So this was a question that we had some issues with. A lot of like backlash on this question. People who I did kind of, I wouldn't say canvas, but we from the Black community and parents with children who are mixed. I talked to a bunch who did receive this survey, and none of them liked this question.
Okay.
They said that they didn't know how to respond because if the police were in their neighborhood too much, they felt like they did not have a safe way to say what they wanted to with this question. I did say, because I had personal ties with them, I did say, well, make sure that you add that in the comment box.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's some sort of box in that survey where you can add more info, but almost all of them said that they were going to not fill out the survey because they thought that it was biased in the way where the questions warranted certain responses.
Okay. Well, and again, they didn't have to answer every question if they didn't want to. That was made clear when they got the survey. So if they weren't comfortable answering a question, they didn't have to answer it, which for this question, 12 people skipped it. So 12 people either didn't have an opinion or they didn't feel comfortable answering it. So I guess I don't know how to respond to them when they said that. Is there a different way we can phrase a question that would be more comfortable, make them more comfortable? I guess that's something that
I did think about that. I didn't really think up an answer, but I figured that it might be good information just for you at this time, but I could ask them another way that it would have been where they would have wanted to answer it.
Okay. Yeah, that would be helpful if we, I've already started to edit the version for 2023. But if you have any ideas or they have suggestions on how to better phrase any of these questions, please let me know, because I'm sure we'll make changes before the next one.
And Chief Thomas, you please go ahead with the slides, but once you get done, I do have a question I think it'd be really valid.
Oh, okay. You can ask now if you want, or would you rather wait?
No, wait to the slides, because this is important too.
Okay. All right, we talked about traffic enforcement. So then we started asking the more overall general questions on meeting the needs of the community. 96.5 thought we were meeting the needs of the community. 3.8% believe we were not. So this next group of slides are kind of what we look at as our report card, if you will, from the community. Couple numbers to keep in mind as we go through these. The next ones are 50 to 60 and 80. So if you look at national confidence in policing numbers, they generally have been between 50 and 60, going back to the 1980s. Kind of depends on what happens nationally. So again, earlier this year, obviously we were down closer to the 50%, but earlier in the year before Minneapolis, we were up in closer to the 60s, but that's generally where we're at. In Wisconsin, the last poll that I could find was put out by Marquette Law. That was just a couple months ago, maybe a month ago at the most. Their survey found that 80% of Wisconsinites approved of the police. So that's kind of where, when we do these slide, we're looking at being over that 80% is what we're hoping for. 100% would be great, but we know that's not really realistic. But that still is a good number. So the next question we asked was, how do you feel about how we treat people in the community? Do we treat people fairly? 91.8% felt we were good or excellent at treating people fairly. 7.9 said we did a fair job, and 0.8% felt we did a poor job of treating people fairly. The next question we asked was on integrity and respect. Again, very similar numbers. 94.1% felt we were good or excellent at demonstrating that, and 0.9% felt we were poor at demonstrating integrity and respect. Again, pretty high numbers. The next question is really the one that I go to first when I get the survey results back. I turn to question 9 first, because that's the question on trust, and that trust is really the lifeblood of policing. Without the trust from the community, there really is nothing that we can do to accomplish our mission. So the question on what extent do you trust us to perform our duties, 93.5% said they trust us. 48% said they trust us a lot. 6% felt they trust us a little bit, and then we have 0.6% who don't trust us at all. So again, those are pretty high numbers. Not perfect, but something that we look at closely. It's a number that we can be proud of, but I think it also has a lot to say about the community, because I think the community has taken the time to understand us and try to understand what we deal with, and work with us. So this isn't just I view this question as not just a grade for the police department, but as a grade for the entire community. Next question, we start getting a little more into some specifics. So next question asks about how good are we doing at proactively preventing crime? And again, this is one where we have room for improvement, a lot of room for improvement. 12.7% felt we just do a fair job at this. And I think some of that is just what we had talked about earlier, very timely, is communicating and sharing what we do, and sharing information with the community in more than just the normal platforms that we're used to using. So the next question gets to the communication concern. And much like you guys talked about earlier, 24% of the community thinks that we are just doing a fair job at communicating with them about public safety issues and concerns. So there is an area where we can make some tremendous growth. The charge for us now is to try to identify how to do that and what platforms to use. So that is going to be one of the projects that our team is going to be looking at going forward here. Understanding that media has changed. It's not all about social media. When I got on Facebook, I thought that was the newest thing, until my daughter reminded me that nobody's on Facebook anymore. So, and local media has changed. We have local TV stations, but a lot of them, or they're all based out of Green Bay, so a lot of the Green Bay news comes through those channels. We're able to get on one of the news stations a couple times a month. The mayor has a community update section. I have a community update section, but that's once a month on Channel 5 in their morning show. But what's really changed is print media in the last 10 or 15 years. Print media has changed. Our local newspaper is now printed in Milwaukee. It's got more statewide coverage, but it does still have local coverage and resources. But it's not what it was, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I grew up. So that is an area that we have to work on. So the overall question, much like the trust question, this is probably the second one I look at. Overall, are you satisfied with the performance of the Appleton Police Department? 97.3, just a really high number that we're proud of. But again, there's 3.6% that are not happy and dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. So those are the numbers that we got to work on. So the next couple are customer satisfaction numbers. So of those people that we had contact with in the last 12 months, how did they feel about us? So much like you have a customer survey or satisfaction that if you go to a restaurant or a store, this is kind of what that is for us. About 40% of the people in the survey said that they had contact or had a call with us in the last 12 months. So we broke out that 40% to find out how satisfied they were with that contact. So that was 367 households. And out of those 367 responses, 95.6 were satisfied or very satisfied with the contact that we had, which is a really good number. Only 4.3% were dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. One of the things that, like I mentioned before, we can do is we'll be able to pull out the dissatisfied or very dissatisfied and find out, where those, what districts those happened in, and the demographics of the people that were involved. So hopefully, find out if there's things that we can do better. Understanding that we'll never get to 100%, we may never get to 96%, but at least we're going to keep trying. The next three questions are kind of the questions of the time. So this is something that we added after the last survey, and that was to ask the questions of the day, if you will, or what are the issues that are being talked about in the community at the time of the survey. They may change 2 years from now or 3 years from now, but currently these are the issues and the discussions that we're having. So what does the community feel about them? The first one we asked about, should we reduce funding for the police department? And we define that as removing resources, eliminating resources, or reallocating them elsewhere to other agencies. So for this survey, we had 83.6% of people do not want to reduce or reallocate funding, but 5.2% believe it should be. And this was definitely the question that had the most comments. We had 296 comments just on this question alone, where some of the other questions we maybe had half a dozen or 10 or 15. So this is one that people were passionate about. A lot of the comments, again, were supportive of no reduction, but there was also a lot of good comments about how we have to rethink how we do things, and there may be better resources and better responses to situations and things in our community, which is something that we've been working on for quite a while, and something I think you're going to hear more about in the next year or so. Second question, and this was a question about do people feel that we support and work towards racial justice and equality? And again, 62% felt we are, but the number that's extremely large is 34.5% don't know. They don't know what we're doing, if we're doing enough or what we're doing. 3.6% don't believe we are. I'll talk a little more about this question later, but we were able to pull out the numbers from our Black, Indigenous, people of color, our BIPOC population. We had 5.4% of the people that took the survey identified themselves as either Black, Indigenous, or people of color. For this question, and again, this is a question that affects them most directly, 45% of the people of the BIPOC people that responded felt that we were doing enough or we were working towards racial justice and equality. I want to make sure I say that right. 45% felt that we were working towards racial justice and equality, but 20% felt we weren't. So that number is much larger than the 3.6, but again, that's the number of the people that it's affecting. So that was very important for us to pull that data out, because that tells us what we already know, is that we need to do a lot more work on racial justice and equality for all citizens. And then the last question was on that throw program. So 74% believe it's important for our schools. Pretty large percentage actually don't know, 23%, and 2.9% don't feel it's important. So we asked the race, obviously. 89% of the people that responded identified themselves as white. 4.5% preferred not to answer. And like I mentioned, 5.4% identified themselves as Black, Indigenous, or people of color, with 12 American Indian, 10 Asian, 5 Black African American, and 10 Hispanic. So that makes up the 37 that we separated for the BIPOC numbers. And we also were able to pull, like I mentioned, about what the 5 Black individuals, how they responded, and the separate race groups. We'll be able to pull out their information also, and we have that already. For a comparison, if you look at the most recent census for the city of Appleton, our Black, Indigenous, people of color population is about 16%. So the responses that we got back, like I mentioned, 5.4% is actually about a third representative of what our actual community is. And that has been the challenge with these surveys for years, is trying to get feedback and responses from those communities. Somebody asked about age group earlier. This was the makeup of the age group. Generally, you know, about the same number of 18 to 20-year-olds as we had 80-year-olds, about the same number of 30-year-olds as 70-year-olds. 50s and 60s were the highest, and actually it was nice to see we had 90 people that were 90 or older. So what our action steps are, obviously we'll get, we'll try to get more feedback using our email address and having other meetings with people like this group and other community members, trying to develop some responses to those issues, adjusting our training in response to the survey results. We'll probably repeat the survey in 2023. We had been doing it every 2 years. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. We had been doing the survey every 2 years. Oops. Sorry, there we are. Apologize. We had been doing a survey every 2 years, but we changed it to every 3 years now, because every 2 years is going to fall during a presidential election, and there's concerns about is that going to skew the information? Because every presidential election cycle seems to just be extremely partisan and political, and we want to make sure that you know, we're doing a survey not during those periods of time, if possible. So that was the overall summary of the community survey. And like I mentioned, we did pull out other data for BIPOC, Black. We had some transgender surveys that we received, and Hispanic. So, Kanan.
Yes, sir.
All you.
I'm great. So I do got a couple questions for you. So we talked about the survey. We was just talking about the survey. Once again, you know, we talked about this at the last meeting, that we can probably help get the survey out amongst the Black community. But these numbers, Chief, these numbers clearly don't reflect the Black community at all. When you talk about even traffic stops and the interactions that, I mean, me personally, Chief, I got plenty of stories. A lot of people don't know my story. Anybody that want to know my story, I'm willing to share my story with you. I've had some incidents with Appleton Police Department when I first moved here. about 16, maybe 16 to 14, 12 years ago. And I've always been a businessman. Anybody that know me, they know I'm a businessman. I've been a businessman in this area for a long time. But like somebody mentioned in one of the other meetings, I had an opportunity where, not an opportunity, a mishap, where I had to close a business of mine, my very first business that I opened. And I ended up cutting hair out of my house. And it brought a whole different type of attention to the block that I lived in. I went to my neighbors. I talked to them about, I'm a barber. I had to close down my shop. I'm cutting hair, blah, 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 blah. So it just turned into a big ordeal that it shouldn't have been. And this is too common. I understand your frustration, Chief, but this is really needs to be heard. This is too common where this type of thing happens. And we talked about also the 5 pillars. So that's what I want to get into. The 5 pillars. So what can a citizen do, or what can an ordinary person do when your officers don't hold up to that standard that they're supposed to hold up to? I want to know about how they reprimand it. Like what steps do regular civilians need to take in order to, because I filed claims before. So anybody, if you look into, who I am, I ended up going through some stuff back in the day with Appleton. I filed claims because I felt like I wasn't in the wrong, and things happened to me based off my race. So therefore I filed claims and nothing happened of it. So I'm wondering, Chief, how are the officers reprimanded for the things that they may do to contradict the 5 pillars?
So the 5 pillars are an initiative for community engagement. That isn't a policy or a work rule, if you will. Those are the 5 pillars are what we focus on to try to improve community engagement, trust, and build a relationship with the community. Now, if an officer violates a policy or rule or regulation, community members can either file a written complaint, do it by phone call, they can come in person, they can have somebody else come to report it for them. Then we investigate it. We do an investigation. We complete a report. We determine if they violated policy or not, and then we give out discipline. That's been the process. That is a process. We encourage anyone who has any complaint to call us, and we'll follow up with them. We talked about body cameras. Again, this is kind of off topic from the survey that came in, but I want to answer your question. We have body cameras. Somebody's got a complaint, come see us. We'll sit down, look at the body camera, and we'll talk about it. And 90% of the time, that resolves the issue. I'm sorry you had some bad experiences with law enforcement in the past. I hope you don't have any more in the future.
No. That's why I can truly say I feel that Appleton Police Department has gotten better, because of the way they used to be when I first moved here. That was before you was chief. So I'm just hoping that, everything is all good. But another thing is, how is the police department dealing with hate crimes in this area, though? When we think about hate crimes, we've had incidents, as well as when you think about the election coming up and everybody voting and people being intimidated by certain voters. Like, is your department ready for this?
Absolutely.
And how ready?
We've been talking for weeks now about polling place security. When we have a hate crime in the community, we make sure we publicize it and we call them out like we just did a few weeks ago. We don't have a lot of them, but when they happen, we make sure that we send the right message and we let our community know that there's no place for that in this community. Bill, do you have your hand up? I'm sorry, go ahead, Kenan.
That's just pretty much it.
Yeah, we actively investigate. We don't permit it. Our officers, if they get a call for it, we've got a program with Lawrence University where they have a confidential bias reporting program at Lawrence. And we've got a relationship with them where they'll let us know, they'll notify us, they'll send us information on things that happen related to bias incidents on the campus. campus or on College Avenue. So we've got that relationship. Yeah, and we'll, just like we're doing now, we have a hate crime that we are actively investigating that just today I've had a couple conversations with the investigators on, seeing where we're at with those.
Real quick though, Chief, I got one more question and I'm done. I think I'm done for real. So have you ever thought about doing a survey for minorities though? You know, because the survey I heard, it was kind of whack. It was kind of like, you know, I understand that's the crowd that you were able to reach, but we've been talking all day about the police department not reaching a bigger crowd. So what I'm wondering is, like, you know, even for minorities, I guarantee you though, if minorities had these same questions, I guarantee you might get a different percentage. That's just my opinion.
I know. No, I get it. Right. And again, to have a community, a scientific survey, you have to have it randomly selected. We don't select by race or age or ethnicity or income level. It's a random survey. And if people choose not to respond to the survey, they cannot respond to the survey. We can't control that. We do reach out to all the communities. Like I mentioned, I just had a webinar last week, last Tuesday, with Pastor Mans and his church. I answered a lot of questions for them. I've been at Pastor Butler's church. Haven't got an invite to papers yet, but I'll show up if you ask me. So we're reaching out as much as we can to those groups. The BIPOC numbers, you know, they are what they are. We only can look at the data that gets returned to us. And we had, you know, 37 of the households responded. There's areas that we have to work on. We obviously know we have to do more to win their trust, but 91.8% of them said they trust us. 0% of the BIPOC respondents said they did not trust us at all. 0 out of the 37.
But Chief, we both know that's just that's a small percentage of the people in the community, though.
I understand that, but that's the data that we have. So I'm just telling you, I totally understand that. There's no way that 100% of the BIPOC people in this community trust the police department. I absolutely know that. But that's all we have in this report. So that's why we have to reach out to other organizations, much like you mentioned, and continue to have those conversations. And not just by a survey, but by showing up and having discussions and going to the church groups and having discussions and going to the different diverse groups and being open to having discussions. We're willing to do that. I have yet to turn down an invite, Keenan. So I saw Elijah or Bill. Sorry, Bill.
Sorry, let me unmute there. I'll just be brief here. I think a lot of the things that the beauty of this council here is just the things that we can take from this and bring back to the community. People like myself, people like Kanan, other people. I think that when we talk about hate crimes, I think we all have a responsibility there to show in our community that there isn't any tolerance, whether you're a police officer or regular citizen. We all have interactions within the community. So I think that's something that's the beauty of this. I did have a question about the survey. Do you guys have goals that you set throughout the survey for different questions that you have? Do you have, I mean, are you looking for like, we want to really hit 98% on this, or we want to hit this? Do you set that out before these surveys are put out, or do you just use it as information that you can gather?
No, we use it as, we kind of benchmark it against what we've had in the past. We've seen in the past. Yeah, obviously we'd love to have 100% everything, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But, you know, the areas that we saw the lower numbers in, working on equality and racial justice, obviously a lower number. That's an area that we have to concentrate on. Traffic enforcement and visibility in the neighborhood. That's the 3 takeaways from this one. Those are the areas where the community feels we're not doing enough, that we could do better. So then what we do is we'll continue to have conversations like we do with the board, and then we'll meet with other community groups and continue to have those discussions, and then we'll embed those into our planning for next year and 2022. Looking at what other initiatives and programs get suggested from these types of conversations, so that we can do better. The next survey is better than this.
Thanks.
Thank you. I know I threw a lot at you. Holy cow, I didn't realize it was getting this late. Appreciate y'all for hanging on this long. I'm gonna send you the survey. And I think obviously next time we'll start off with questions that you have about the survey and comments. It'll give you guys some time to think about it and talk to other people that you know, see what their feedback is. It'll give us some time to kind of dig through the data a little more and pull out some more specific information. If you have any specific questions about reports that you would like run based on whatever, just send me an email or give me a call and I'll see if I can run the report. We can pretty much do anything with the data. It's SurveyMonkey, so if you ever worked in SurveyMonkey, it's pretty easy to use. Just let me know what kind of data you're looking for. And then I think we'll start off next month's meeting, just kind of reviewing the survey and talking about your suggestions and questions. I know Beth and I have a long list of things to put together and talk up on, so we'll be doing that. And then I think we'll just probably have one topic. We can either do recruitment and retention, or we can do use of force. Probably send out a survey ahead of time to see what you want to cover, because I don't know if we're gonna be able to cover all of it in one meeting. I think we just took on too much. So we'll probably just review the survey next time, and then I'll ask you guys to I'll send a poll to you. Do you want to do recruitment and retention, or do you want to do use of force? So
Chief,
under 2 hours.
Chief, just one last thing. I hung in here with you the whole time. I know the mayor had to beg off.
You're the boss.
We'll fuss at him tomorrow about that. But anyhow, just wanted to offer one more thing for you to have Beth to share if you haven't already, and that is my diversity resources book for the city of Appleton. I heard a couple people saying that they did not know about some of our groups. And as you know, my diversity interns compiled this 30-page book. Many of you on this call are aware of that, but some of you may not. Diverse and resilient is listed in there, African heritage, CASA, HISPANA. My new virtual diversity interns are working on updating it this year for 2020. The current version, it's on appleton.org, the city's website. It's under the mayor's office, under diversity and inclusion, and then click on diversity resources, and you can get that 30-page book. And the current virtual diversity interns are updating it to 2020, at which time we'll be adding the POP, People of Progression, and others.
Yes,
thank you.
And that's great. Thanks, Karen. And again, that's just another example of where we just kind of assumed everybody knew about this and had this, but clearly everybody didn't. So yeah, you can get that.
And then if I could say, Paul, I'm gonna link you over with Kathy Flores. She's an awesome person.
Who's that?
Kathy Flores.
That's his name and number. That's his name and numbers in the resources book. That's exactly right. And also, since he may not know, Kathy Flores is my immediate past predecessor in this job, and the longest serving of the 7 of us who have had this job for 7 years. She was in this position for 7 years. And also, one last thing, Chief, and Kanan, to Kristen's question about Green Bay, let's just put it out there, Chief. All we can do is lead by example. My position was created by Mayor Hanna 23 years ago, and we've been talking to Green Bay. And to their credit, finally, in our 22nd year of the creation of this position, they've now added a diversity and inclusion position to the city of Green Bay. So hopefully the PD department there will come along as well, following Chief Todd's leadership. So that's all we can do is lead by example, and hopefully more members of our Fox Cities community will continue to. And it's not like we're perfect. I mean, I don't believe in that panacea kind of thing. We've got a long way to go, but we're working at it, putting our shoulders to the wheel every day. Thank you.
We have more work to do.
And a lot more work to do.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say, it's funny you said that because I actually already played the creepy person and I reached out to Paul. I don't know if you're still on, but I messaged you on Facebook because I am that creepy person that finds you. And I messaged you Kathy Flores's phone number.
Perfect. Yes.
Yeah, I don't use Facebook anymore. I haven't used it for about 10 years.
I'll send it to you, Paul. I'll send you Kathy and Nick Ross's information. Yep.
Yes.
So, all right. All right. Wow, long meeting, but a lot of really great stuff. Thank you guys for all hanging in there this long. The great ideas and suggestions. Look forward to next month. I'll get that poll out to you. Beth and I will we'll try to get some minutes together between our 2 chicken scratchings, and we'll get that out to you. And then you guys can just kind of let us know if we need to make some changes to the minutes
If I can make one comment, Chief.
Yes, Irma.
I want to say thank you, actually, because I think you have a very difficult job. And I think that you have led with courage. And when you came up and the team probably came up with this idea, it takes a lot of strength. And I think you have shown that. So if today we have this opportunity to voice ourselves and be heard, it's because of your leadership. So I really want to recognize that publicly.
Thank you. I'm blessed to have this job and get to work with amazing people. I don't know what I ever did to deserve it, but I thank God for it. So
I want to second that, Chief. I want to second what Beth just said. Thank you so much for your time. You're being, like I told you, my experience with the police, I've been stopped by 2 times, but my experience has been very fantastic compared to that of Milwaukee. So I want to thank you so much for your time and for your help and for your leadership in the community. I really appreciate. I hope we all can feel the impact as we move forward. But thank you so much for all the stress and all the work that you're doing.
thank you, Pastor. Appreciate that. And you guys are going to make a huge impact. A lot of these suggestions and ideas that you guys have made, you're going to see come to fruition. So thank you. I appreciate that from you guys. So I think it's time to go to bed. I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired. I appreciate it. Everybody be well. We'll see you guys in a month or so. We'll get all that information out for you. Thank you, guys.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you very much.
Stay healthy.